nobody is denying what you're
so
saying,
I'm
and
also
possibly it is
comparing.
reflecting in our headline numbers, where people still, the respondents still have more faith in the NDA by a far shot than the opposition. But I'll give you an example, because look at the numbers as well. See what happened in Bihar, where freebies were doled out bang in the middle of elections. The same election commission then, come BMC, doesn't allow the freebies to go. That is where then you have apprehensions that come up, which raise a question mark on institutions that need to be free and fair. And those numbers are reflecting. Look at the question: who is responsible for stopping parties from promising freebies? Election Commission. But when the Election Commission, on one hand, allows these freebies to go in Bihar, and then on the other hand stops it in BMC, what are you going to make of it? Go ahead, sir.
Now, allow me to answer, please. If you are comparing assembly elections, you should compare it with another assembly elections. You should compare Bihar with Jharkhand. I was in Jharkhand in 2024 November on the eve of elections. One day before the polling, the Maya Samman, amount was transferred to the accounts of all women in the state.
Every time a question on the Election Commission and the sanctity of the Election Commission is raised, why is the BJP so eager to come and start giving in explanations on that? You don't need to. You don't need to explain on how the Election Commission is functioning.
I'm just requesting you to draw the right equivalence. You can't. I'm just suggesting you draw the right equivalence. BMC, it does not even come under the Election Commission. The point is, these things have been happening. Whether they should happen, the freebie should happen or not, is a collective decision. All parties should get together and they should formulate a plan. But if there is a precedent in Jharkhand 1 year ago, you can't blame the Bihar government for doing the same.
Okay, there's a huge difference between Jharkhand and Bihar to him, but that's another day. That's a conversation for another day.
Let me turn to a question that we wanted to ask earlier, but what are the NDAs? We're looking at the opposition, and as was suggested, Rahul Gandhi always is a favorite. Rahul bashing is very easy. But where is the BJP, the NDA scoring? Where is it not? If you look at the NDA government's biggest achievement, and this is held for a while now, Chengappa, 12% say Ram Temple. The temple is now, 2 years old, and yet it held. Operation Sindoor is 4%. So it's not, when you look at it, you would have thought since it's more recent, people would talk about Operation Sindoor with greater passion. They clearly don't. Development, 9%. Since that was an argument just now made by one of our panelists that the NDA is associated with development. So, in terms of issues, it's the emotive Hindutva issue which still resonates the more. What is the biggest failure of the NDA government?
Let me just correct you on that one. There is a correction. There is a correction in that.
Biggest failure.
No,
that's important. That's important. Please listen to Raj.
Biggest success, what you had mentioned, for the first time in our polls, it is political stability that is the biggest success of the NDA.
Okay, so you're saying
down that list, it is 15%, and mind you, Rajdeep, this is a phenomenon. We have asked this question over various MOTNs in the past few years. For the first time, we are seeing political stability as the #1 achievement of it, pushing down both the Article 370
down the Ram Temple
and the Ram Temple.
So we will correct that graphic. 15% you're saying political stability is the #1 issue. Now look at the weaknesses of this government. When you look at the weaknesses, #1, and this has steadily remained a weakness of this government when this poll has been done, is unemployment. 27% is the biggest failure. So you've got political stability as the success. Price rise. The NDA, of course, claims that one of its successes is that it's ensured inflation, at least in the headline numbers, has remained low. Economic growth, 7%. So all the failures are linked to economic issues. The successes are linked to political stability and the core Hindutva issue, which Ram Temple in a way exemplifies.
Just one
does this reflect, just a minute, does this reflect in a way Mr. Modi's strength? Mr. Modi is providing stable leadership, he has trust factor, and he brings Hindutva on the table. And when you put it all together, it becomes a pretty impressive statistic. So even if I'm concerned about unemployment, I concern price rise, every poll will show you're concerned about price rise. I've never seen a poll where people are not concerned about prices. It suggests that Mr. Modi, the individual, embodies stability and embodies Hindutva nationalism, and that remains the NDA's biggest strength.
Agreed, Rajdeep, on the positive side of it. And in fact, our cover headline is delivering stability. And that's the reason why the numbers that you see in terms of the BJP and NDA has gone up. in an age of great turmoil that we see in an era of turmoil, global, regional, and even domestic. He stands as someone with a great deal of resilience, economic and political. And if you flip it to the other side, which is the failures, as you said, it's routine for our polls to show unemployment and inflation being on top of the list, and of course, economic issues. But here there is a very interesting variation. For the first time, we are seeing, after many, many MOTNs, that there is actually a dip in the percentage of people who are saying, one, that unemployment is their biggest problem, is down by 2%. And really significant is the fact that unemployment figures that is being reflected is a 10% drop as compared to previously. It has actually, the number of people saying that unemployment is a serious problem has dropped by 10%. So therefore, we need to analyze what is that issue. Now here, when you look at another question that we have posed, which is, which are the most important issues? Again, unemployment and inflation figure. So something, we have to try and decipher what the issue is. I was speaking to Yashwant earlier about this matter because there is a paradoxical situation that has emerged in this. And one of the reasons, if you look at the fact that they talk of unemployment being serious, and yet when it comes to the rating of the failures, this begins to be of lesser intensity, is that that the government's doles towards women, for instance, across the country, means that 50% of the workforce seem satisfied. Two, I would say that the government's giving, say, income tax free for 12 lakhs and below had brought something like 30 million or a large number of people not in that bracket, not paying tax anymore, put more money in their hands. So even if much of it is aspirational, if you have a low-paying job, you want a better job, maybe people are saying, okay, I've got this job, so therefore the rush into the market is not as much. It's a very difficult thing to explain.
So in a way, Mr. Modi, to summarize, has managed to a large extent contain a sense of economic distress through targeted schemes that benefit various sections of society. Therefore, even with troubled global headwinds, with difficult economic conditions, he's not allowed the distress to become overwhelming, which is an important plus in a way.
And just let's add to that,
the political stability that he's seen to provide.
And also that inflation is at its lowest. Let's not forget, high prices have always been an issue. As we mentioned earlier, this is a Goldilocks period where you have low inflation between 2 to 4%, which is within the acceptable limits that the RBI wants, and therefore it's been dropping the repo rate, and high growth. So one of the big factors, prices, people feel that they are getting value for their money, and therefore you see the resistance. But let's be very clear, economic issues, as we'll see later on the polls as well, if those numbers come in, remain the dominant issue of this electorate.
There are multiple things that work.
If you look at it from 2024, and if you look at the tracker of unemployment tracked, I think, in the MOTN poll in 2024, the poll that you did right after the general elections was at the highest.
Quite high.
Berozgari was a narrative that the opposition went with. It stuck in places like Uttar Pradesh, and since then we've seen a steady drop. And on the, at least where MOTN polls are concerned, on unemployment. But what's bolstered it also, where we talk about stability, political stability, since then, Yashwant, election after election, you've had the BJP winning these elections, conveying a sense of stability, and then the inflation is low. It all makes the perfect storm which works in favor of Prime Minister Modi.
Every election that BJP has won since then, there is a common line, that is the cash dole to the female voters. All right. So this is what actually me and Raj were discussing, that this is looking at paradoxical, and that's why I went into a kind of a data digging and, why exactly is this happening? And I could realize that a significant chunk of female voters who were saying that unemployment is the main issue that has come down, and that has brought down because of the cash doles, definitely. But Rajdeep, there is something which is like, we ask this question day in and day out. What is the biggest issue our country is facing at this point of time? And we always ask the second question, who according to you is likely to give a solution to this? I mean, who do you trust more to give it? And this is where, bottom line, I've realized that the trustworthiness of brand Modi outscores everything else. When you ask those who are saying unemployment is the biggest issue, there is a 1:2 ratio between Rahul Gandhi and Narendra Modi, saying Narendra Modi can give a solution to this. When you talk about inflation as the biggest issue, there is almost a 1:2 ratio. So the same ratio is in the vote share of the Congress and the BJP. The same ratio is in the popularity rating of Narendra Modi and Rahul Gandhi. And one critical important piece of information, if you look into this, you will realize, Rajdeep, that Narendra Modi's numbers are way more than NDA's number, while Rahul Gandhi's numbers are way less than the India numbers. I think there is something which is still missing in that big piece of jigsaw puzzle.
Okay.
Rahul Gandhi is there, but somehow is still, he has managed successfully one thing, Rajdeep, that's sowing the doubt among his die-hard supporters that I am not losing, I am losing because the game is fixed and election commission is fixed. That part, his own supporters have bought it wonderfully, no doubt about that. But is he able to swing the middle of the ground voters towards the Congress and towards Rahul Gandhi? That is not happening.
And just
that is something which should surprise.
There is one headline number that I always throw. In 2009 Lok Sabha elections, the Congress won roughly 11.2 or 11.3 crore voters. The BJP was at about 7.4 crore voters. Fast forward to 2024, the BJP's voters have gone up to 22 crores. The Congress is up to 13. What does it show? The Congress's voters have remained more or less the same. The BJP has added new voters. And it is when they've added new voters that you're able to successfully win election after election. And therefore, there is no magic formula. There is a lot what Sanjay Jha says that needs to be looked at very carefully. I think next time that question should be asked, is there a level playing field in Indian politics? Or do you believe one side has a huge advantage over the other? Direct question. I think if there is any suggestion, I think Yashwant needs to put some harder, more direct. Do you really trust the election commission? Not generic questions. So if that comes out, I think some of the nuances will come out. But it's clear at the moment, Preeti, that brand Modi is far more trusted than his competition. And once that happens, the fact is you have an extremely durable leader. I don't know where else in the world at the moment, 12 years into power, you're still seeing these pretty impressive numbers. And that, in a way, the economics call it what, Goldilocks moment. But politically also, the stability factor gives Mr. Modi a huge edge over the competition.
Well, you're right there, Rajdeep, and especially if you look at it now, if you look at the tracker, now I think, Raj, one can safely say that 2024 general election was a blip.
No, I
Do you
would...
think we can say that?
I think there are a vastly different set of circumstances. I'd just like to add to one more point that Yashwant was making. One of the reasons why Mr. Modi comes across as the champion of political stability is because the opposition has lost so many elections, is so fragmented that no one wants to trust in these very, very troubled times a leader that is unable to navigate his own party and try and run the nation. I think Mr. Modi demonstrates, as the BJP does, that it is not only does he have a very solid party, he's very clear in terms of the vision that he has for the country. And let's take a look at the reforms that he has brought about. He talks of the reform
We will talk of the reforms in the next segment, Raj.
I just want to add that
reform, no, we've run out of time. The Reform Express is in the next segment. The state of the economy is what we will discuss next. When we return, that's precisely the question. The Prime Minister says we are on a Reform Express. Do the people agree? The mood of the nation on the economy comes up next. You're watching our biannual mood check. Mood of the nation, India Today, See Voter Poll.